Hi, thank you for joining the video today. It's going to be a really fun one. I have a cool design to share with you. It's an earring that's kind of like a falling leaves cluster. It can be worked with, of course, Czech glass leaves, but I found that a lot of other beads worked, gave it a very cool look, and it all has that cascade effect of just being out there on the trail and having leaves just coming down all around you. And so you can wear that on your ears for the season. But as you'll see when we get going, and I'll show you some of the other spins on this design, you can turn it into champagne toast. You can turn it into a bouquet of flower petals. It really has a lot of places you can take it. So it's a basic recipe. I love when I do jewelry designing to have a recipe in mind that tells me basic materials, and then I go from there to work substitutions to use what I have or to find a great use for a bead that I really want to use, like beautiful things I found in live sales from Jill's. Live sales are wonderful. You see some of those here on the mat right now. So I'm going to show you what I did. But to get started, here's the basic recipe of what you need. You'll need about 12 to 16 beads. And so 12 for the 3 clusters, and then 16 if you want to do 4 clusters. And I'll explain all that as we get going. But 12 to 16 beads, and that's actually per earring. So double that for a pair, of course. And then for the wire, you can use 24 or 22 gauge. Those are both going to be fine. Test your bead, see if it fits, but for the most part, you're gonna find that it works. I found 24 and 22 to be interchangeably useful for every bead I had here on the mat. I used as a really pretty accent, it kind of looks like a little moon hanging behind the leaves. I use these rings. They're available in silver too. They're 12 millimeters, really flexible on this, guys. You can kind of you could even make a ring with your wire, but I thought these were a nice fast way to get there. So I really liked using those. And I used ear wires, which is really super flexible. Any kind of ear wire you've got. You could use an earring post too, another option. And so that's the beads, the wire, the rings, the ear wires. That's the basic materials. For tools, I'm going to be pulling in quite a few tools. Round nose pliers, you're going to want some of those. So basic, just round nose. Chain nose pliers, and I use a couple different kinds of chain nose. Actually, I use 3 kinds. I use a square. This is a square chain nose that I use for jump rings mostly. And then again, the bent ones also, I kind of use both of these together for jump rings. So that's my go-to for that. I have a pair of fine point chain nose that I'm using. I'm going to be kind of here and there using some Nylon Jaw Pliers, and that's to straighten out my wire, make it smooth, helps your wire work be a little more sharp, And then flush cutters. You're going to want to be able to cut that wire. I like to use a nice sharp pair of flush cutters, and side cutters will work too, but I do prefer flush cutters. And then last but not least, you will probably, this is optional, but you'll probably like it. I'm using some crimping pliers in a very unusual way. When I finish my wraps, I use it to sharpen my coils. I use only the front part of the tool for that. And I'll show that, I'll demo that a couple of times. But it's basically just a way to make that coil nice and round. And it helps you get the tail tucked down. So that in a nutshell is materials and beads. I wanted to, I'll probably do this again during the video as we introduce each one, but just in general, the stuff that I use to make these beautiful designs. I'm going to start with the petals. So these gorgeousnesses came from the live sale. I think it was either last week or the week before, from when I'm recording this, but this version here, I just used these beautifuls. Aren't they gorgeous? It's such a nice design, and it was such a nice way to use these. And I kind of ombre'd them into like a little stack. I don't know. I thought that was cool. So that's how I did that one. And then for my champagne toast ones, I did these. These look like ice to me. Those are so cool. Check that out. I use these for the very statement one. This one could maybe possibly benefit from like a post. I think it's a little on the statement side, but it definitely looks very cool. So that's what those are made of. This one, super unique idea. It's made with Jill's SuperDuo palette. She has a really cool palette that is on the website right now, and it looks like all of these matte velvet, like fall colors put together. That's staying on the camera there. Can you see how cool this is? It's like I ombre them. I ombre them from dark to light. That seems to be kind of what I've been doing with all my designs lately. So that is just the super coolest earring. And you'll notice this has an extra cluster on it. I've been doing them in sets of 4. So this one has the additional because I wanted to use all 4 from the palette. And also they're smaller. So to get the same length as 3 clusters, I needed to use 4 the SuperDuo. And last but not least, check glass leaves, which was the original idea and the last one I did. So it is, of course, traditionally and gorgeously beautiful with actual leaves for a falling leaves design. But as you can see, sky's the limit here for what you can use. And I did one extra thing on this one. I'll probably explain a little more when I show how to do the actual wire wrapping on it. But I did drop a little leaf here. This is a maple leaf. And it's the only thing that's different from the others. All I did was to the bottom of the last cluster, I linked these little pretties. I linked one of the maple leaves to the bottom of that with 3 jump rings there. Oh, and that reminds me, I did not remember to mention jump rings. If you have some little jump rings, 4 millimeter, round or oval, 6 millimeter work too, it'll be fine. But little jump rings will be handy as well. So something just to link things together. You only need a few of them for each earring. You need 1. So on the ones with 3 clusters, you just need 1 for each cluster. And if you're doing one of these little dangles, you'll just need extras for that. And then on the SuperDuo, I had 4 clusters, so I needed 4 jump rings per earring on that one. So everything I'm saying here will be in a PDF document for you to download, so you don't have to remember it. I'm just talking through it. And in this video now, I'm going to jump into instructions. So creating these little wraps, creating each of the clusters, linking the clusters, and finishing the earring. So let's go. So I have 3-inch pieces of craft wire here, and you can use 24 or 22 gauge. What I have here is actually 22, but on some of my other ones, I was using 24, and it was really just based on what I had and in the color that I was going for. You also will need a jump ring, and this is a pretty flexible choice. You can have a jump ring that's round, you can have an oval one, you can use one that's 4 millimeter, 6 millimeter. If you like what I've got here, I have a 4 millimeter oval jump ring. And sorry, that was not on camera when I was speaking about it, but it's right here. And these 4 are each 3-inch pieces of 22 gauge. And that's what I'm currently using. But again, on these other ones, for example, this one right here is 24 gauge. And you can base that on a lot of factors. You can base it on the type of bead, the type of, color that you want. If you have certain colors and certain sizes, it's flexible. You can get away with a lot of stuff. And then for your beads, I have some things from the live sale, but I wanted to say that this is definitely possible to use a lot of different things. You can pull in so many different beads for this design. So here's how to make those. I grabbed 4 of those. So whatever bead you're using, each cluster will have 4. You'll need 4 wires and 1 jump ring. All right, let's make our first little segment. So go ahead and bring your wire through, and the amount that you have on this side, I tend to just eyeball it, but to give you a measure, looking about a 1/2 inch or so, and that's usually plenty. You can go with a little more. I wouldn't go with any less. And then just go ahead and very gently, so you don't hurt whatever stone you're working with or leaf or bead, bring it to a point like that. And you can use your fingers. It's craft wire, it's soft. Just bring it to connect a little bit like that. And now you're going to need your round nose pliers. And you just want to put those about at their midpoint or so. And then you'll position it so that the stone is facing kind of perpendicular to the tool if you would like the loop to run in face with the front of the bead. Not a requirement, however. Let me show you on one of them a little different idea. You could have it run to the side. So either is going to be fine. And in this case, I went with a side suspension. And in this one, you're going to see the loop facing the front. So let me show you what that looks like. From here, take your long wire and just bend that forward, just like that. And you want to just take your flush cutters and cut the short one just above the pliers. So just there like that. And then you'll take the tool, and I'm going to rotate my tool up just like that. And that is just so that I can do my loop over and around to meet the work here. You'll need to rotate the pliers one more time back to the position they were originally to complete the loop. And you might get something that looks a bit like that. What I like to do to make it center, I want this loop centered above this, is I just roll the pliers back. And now I've got that loop nice and centered. And if I take it off the tool, you can see what we've got there. That's really good. So I'm going to grab the next thing that I like to do is I have some chain nose pliers that I will use to hold that loop in place. And on this first one, we don't need to connect it to anything, but heads up for the next three. At this step, you'll connect it to the former. For this first one, we're just going to go right to the wrapped loop. So we're just going to take this end with a wire. We'll just go around. There's one. There's two. So there's what 3 looks like. You can do 3 or you can do 4. Before I do another one, I want to straighten out my coils here at the back. The front already looks pretty good. And so this is an optional coil, just if you feel like adding one. And now I'm going to trim that little wire right there. Using the flush end of my flush cutters, I'll just hold this piece that I'm going to trim, and being careful not to cut a coil or the other wire that I'm using, just go ahead and trim it. And you'll get that. And so I have a trick I want to share. This is a completely optional trick, not required. But if you like this, it is actually what I do. I use these. They're crimping pliers. And I use the part of the tool that is just the round shape, so that part of the tool, to form my coils down when I make these kind of coils. So what I like to do is I'll support with I'm right-handed, so I'm using my left hand here. I'll support the loop with my left hand holding it. And now I'll bring the crimping pliers over and only working with that front one. We don't want to crimp it. We just want to work with the round. I'll use that to put the tail down. And it also can be used to kind of round the coil that you've got going. So really, really nice way to do your coils. And I find it's a little easier to control what's happening when you're pushing that tail down. Sometimes it can kind of get away from you. It can kind of like be a little harder to align. But that said, if you would like to straighten it out with just your regular pliers, that is completely possible. And I do use different kinds of pliers. Like I might use a bent nose to come along and do straightening, but they tend to slip, at least for me. So that other method is a really nice way to do it. You can also take your bent nose the other direction. Try that way. But all of this, the level of perfection needed on these coils is not really very maximum, because there's going to be a lot of them, and you can make them look really nice, but they're all just going to blend together. So keep that in mind as you're working when you're assessing what level of perfection to take it to. Sorry, I hit the camera there. All right, so we're gonna make another one. And again, we're just gonna bring this through. I'm eyeballing about, that's probably more than a 1/4 inch, but roughly a 1/4 inch there. And again, these were 3-inch cuts. I'm just gonna bring that up like that. Okay. And then just press them together. And it doesn't have to be exact. This is very organic, very forgiving. And I'm gonna go ahead and bring my round nose pliers over. And just put those together in the plier about halfway through. Bend the long one down. And then using your flush cutters, you want to trim that top tail. So that's flush. Again, move your pliers up so that you can bring the long end around, and it'll meet just kind of like that. Then you'll just want to bring them back to the position they were in to complete that loop. And again, you'll get something that looks like that. And if you just kind of hold this together and just rotate those pliers, you can center it. And at this point, I will remove it from the tool and I'll link it to the first one. So I want to identify my first one. It becomes important for your cluster to know which one's the top one and each subsequent one. So at this stage, at this step right here, I'm going to pop this jump ring on my first one. So let's get the little jump ring here. I'm going to open it. It's a really organized way to make a nice little beaded cluster. Let's just close that up. Okay, so now it's clearly identified that that is my top. And I can put this one onto the actual round part. So this was the loop made on the first one. Just bring this second one through it. Pull tightly and see it's going to suspend like that. So let's just turn this so that it's easy to work the coil. I'm going to use my pliers again. And they're just going to support my loop just like last time. And I think I'll do that with them going across the top like that. So the wire's running across the top part. And I like to do this pretty slowly to get my coils nice and, tight. Here we go. We're just going to work this around. And I went for 4, just optionally. Tighten here. Tighten there and trim. Let's get this flush cutters here. Go ahead and just trim it right close as you can without cutting any of those cables or wires. Hold that in place. And then super, super optional here, we're just gonna, and I don't fully close the tool. So I'm gonna make sure I explain that to you. You can kind of see what's happening here, what it's doing. It's just making that little coil so pretty. So a little trick for you. I like doing that. All right, so now we have one of those linked to this one. I need to make another one. And when I finish that one, or when I get that to the point where it's linkable, I'll link it to this loop right here. So I'll link another one of those to this loop. And then when I make finish that up, I'll make one more and link that to the bottom of this one. So what I'll have is a little chain where you've got each one linked to the one before it. And the finished version looks like this. So you can see here is the jump ring of the top one. Okay, and then here's the second one attached to it. Attached to the second one is my third one. And attached to my third one is my fourth one. There we go. So it's so simple. And it makes a very bold look. This jump ring is attached to the very bottom one. We'll do this together in a bit here, but just to show the link up. What happened there is I just took the jump ring from the top one of that and linked it to the very bottom one of the former cluster that's above it, and that one is linked to the ring. And then this one will be linked to the ear wire here at the top with the earring on it. So you see where we're going. All right, I'm going to finish these two really quick, and then we'll finish up this earring together. All right, so this top one is all finished. I've got an ear wire ready to go. And what I like to do to link everything together and finish it up is I will take the ear wire itself and then open the loop on the ear wire. First, you want to put on the ring. And if there's a side to this that you think is more stunning than the other, I think they look great on both sides. But some of them might show more of what became sort of like a chain at the back because of the way we linked each of those beautiful brios. So if you turn it to the front, I feel like that's the front, where you can see the least of the chain. So let's hang that one on there in that direction. I've got a jump ring here that's identifying my very top of this cluster of brios. So we'll link that one right here to the top of the ear wire. I put it in the front. You could put it in the back though. It doesn't have to be in the front. I just thought that looked the best. But it really looks beautiful no matter what. So there we go. I'm just going to close the ear wire. And there's this one all finished. So that is probably the most statement one. It's probably the one that's a little bit more going to be a little bit more on the earlobes going on, but it's definitely gorgeous. All right, so this is how you wire wrap a petal bead in a kind of like a brio fashion. Start with about 2.5 to 3 inches or so of, in this case, I'm using a 22 gauge craft wire. You could also use 24. Both of those options are good options. And I'm going to use some Nylon Jaw Pliers to smooth out this wire. It's got a lot of spool memory. And I like just kind of hold it with one side with whatever pliers I've got. Go in there and then just smooth it out. You'll want to do that with, most of your wire cuts will probably need it, you'll find. So once you've got that ready to go, choose a petal. And again, you want to bring this on to about 1/2 inch or so. But I wanted to point out one thing. If you'd like to give it some height, and by that I mean make it a little longer, you can do that. The moment to do that is right here. You can measure more than 1/2 inch here just to give it some height. And truthfully, I just kind of look at it and see, hey, this looks good like that. And it can move around a lot, and it looks like it's got some sway to it, so that works pretty good. And then you'll just want to get your round nose pliers. And in this case, I wanted to point out one thing. You could, if you wanted to, have your loops run so that they are going in that direction. See how this one, it's kind of like the petal, the loop is facing in the petals on its side. And that is just a design choice. I don't think it has to be that way. It's what I kind of just did without thinking about it, to be totally honest, and I liked how it looked. So that's what I'm doing here, but it is, I think it's up to you how you'd like that to go. I trimmed off the top. So far, very similar to how we did the others. Bring this up, and then just bring the long wire around the front. Turn those pliers again, and bring that wire back like that. So you'll have same thing. Just kind of move those pliers in a direction towards you, and it will close up. Give you a little loop like that. So if you've already made your first one, what you'll want to do is link it to that one. And after you've got it linked, go ahead and finish that loop. Have 3 or 4 wraps. I think I've been going with 4 just because it looks nice, but I think you can kind of get away with anything here. I think 4 is really secure. A 3 is going to be fine too. Trim this end. All right, and kind of the same thing I've been doing. I'm going to do the same thing where I like kind of put the coil flat using my crimping pliers, which is unorthodox but very cool way to make your coils look very sharp. So again, I'm going to use the front part of my crimping tool. And I don't totally close it, guys. I just see what I'm doing here? I'm not closing it all the way, but I'm just giving it that circular shape. Takes care of the tails. If for some reason, it happens on occasion that it moves my coil down just a tiny, tiny bit. I feel like that's really easy to fix. You just use chain nose, just pop that right back in. And then you've got the coil looking really nice there. Okay, so these two are linked, and I'm going to make 2 more, just like that. And I will link each one to this, so this next one will be linked to that loop. And the next one I make will be linked to the loop on this one. And so you just keep going like that. One thing you can do at this spot, and if somewhere around this step, if you'd like to just mark that top one. I just find it kind of helps when you start layering up all of the petals. It's really helpful to have the top one marked, because they'll start to kind of just like flop around and get mixed up a little bit. It's not too bad. You'll be able to figure it out, but it's just so much easier if you've got a little jump ring saying, hey, this is the top one here. And now I know when I make my next one, link it to the one that doesn't have a jump ring on it. And then the next one to the next one. All right, so let me finish that really quick. And then we'll make 4 in each of the other colors. And then I'm going to show you how to link them. So now I have a cluster made. And let me just show you how it looks when you just pick up the top jump ring here. So find your little jump ring and pick that up. And you have a nice little cluster of petals, leaves, SuperDuo beads, whatever kind of leaves you're working with. And if you have any, like, do you see mine right here, my last one I made? I just need to help that wiggle down. I might have made that one a little tight, just a little accidentally, but make sure they're pointing downward. And then you've got your cluster all ready to go. So they're going to look different depending on what bead you use, but they're all going to look really, really, really pretty. So I will need to make 2 more clusters, just like this one. All right, time for assembly. So you've made 3 or 4 clusters, and you have a jump ring at the top of each one. We're going to need one of these links. And get an ear wire going. I'm going to set this one aside for later. Okay, so to assemble this, you're going to need some pliers to open and close jump rings. I like to use some square and bent nose pliers. So just some shaped chain nose, basically. However you like to do your jump rings is just great. If you'd like to do an ombre like I did, where I kind of went from the darkest color to the lightest color, then start with this one as your bottom and move up to the turquoise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the jump ring at the top of my blue cluster. And I'm going to take a look at my turquoise cluster, identify by the jump ring, the top one, and then you can see it's that one, that one, that one. The bottom one is this one. So to this bottom one, I'm going to attach my bottom cluster. And let's go back and find the jump ring at the top of the turquoise one. And this really is where the jump rings kind of shine, because they help you identify the positions of each of your petals. So now I have the top jump ring here. I'm going to need to open that. And attach that to your link. And close your jump ring. So there's the bottom of our cluster. And for the top, The only thing we need to open is the ear wires loop. So depending what kind of ear wire you're using, you just want to open the bottom loop on it. Let's see. There we go. Use kind of like a lateral motion if you're using a type of ear wire that has a loop that's like that, like a jump ring. And then identify the front. So the front of my earring is going to be here. And so I'm going to go ahead and put on the loop. And then let's get the jump ring of the top of my top cluster here. Put that on the ear wire. And let's close the ear wire. And there you go. It's a little cascade of beautiful petals. Let's get the other one here. Here we go. Look at that. That's stunning. That's going to wear so beautifully. Can you just see that on? So that's how to do, in a nutshell, that is the recipe. I have a leaf one. And I know Jill's adding a bunch of beautiful leaves, so you guys are going to want to check that out. This was made the same exact way. I'm going to show you how to wrap one of these leaves. It is pretty much the same exact way that we did these other two, but it's going to be fun to see it anyway. But again, I want to just identify the structure is exactly the same. So it's 4 leaves. They were joined exactly the same way in that little cascade. And again, it's to the ear wire. And then the rings on that. Here at the bottom, you've got the first jump ring of the first cluster, and the second cluster is linked to the bottom leaf. See? There's one other extra thing here happening that is optional, but I could not resist these beautiful little maples. And so what I did is to the very bottom leaf of the bottom cluster, I joined it. In this case, I had to use 3 jump rings to get the flow that I wanted, because I wanted it to hang below the last leaf, and the leaves are kind of big, so in order for it to really show, I had to put that many jump rings. You'll have to play with that depending on your leaf size and what's happening there, but and in that case, I just did a little wire wrap. You can either use a head pin or you can wire wrap it, however you'd like to the bottom of that jump ring. But let's do a leaf together just so you can see that in motion. And I worked with a different color of wire for this one. In this case, I was using a bronze, and I happen to only have, actually it says natural brass para. So it is 24 gauge. And again, that wasn't a choice I made because of size. It was because of the color, and it was what I had. So 24 or 22 are both going to be just fine for this. And again, I'm going to smooth it out. I probably cut a little more than I needed there. You really don't need more than 3 inches. You can get away with 2.5. But that's kind of like a good measure. It gives you enough wiggle room to like form and do stuff with your wire. So, and this is a side drill, so I'm just going to get my wire through it. And then just use your fingers. The wire is nice and soft. Bring it to a point like that. So just like that. And we're going to roll that forward. Trim. Oops. And when you trim, make sure it's the flush side down. So now you've got that roughly. Bring your pliers, rotate them up, and then you bring the long wire around. So you'll get something that looks like that, see? And then if you rotate the pliers again back to where they were, you can complete that loop. Your loop will be a little off, so I usually keep my grip on the pliers like this, and I'll hold the piece and just kind of roll the pliers this way, just to center that loop right above. And at this point, you don't need those anymore. You can get some chain nose and hold your loop in place. This one we don't need a link because it's the first one, so I'm just wrapping. And because it's 24 gauge, I'll make a point of going around 4 times, maybe even 5. It's a little softer wire. Straighten out my coil. Same thing here at the back. There you go. So what I like to do is hold that loop myself with either my hands or my pliers, get the flush cutter, trim off that piece. And then you can use your crimping pliers to just kind of fold that, or if you want to, you can always just take a very pointy chain nose plier and you can flatten them down that way. So whichever method works great for you. It's okay to like straighten the coils that way. That's how to do one of these leaves. All right, so last but not least, I wanted to show a really fun variation that you can do. This is a little more wrapping to do. You're going to make an additional cluster just because they're smaller, and so for something stunning about the same length. I'll show you side by side with all of them laid out, but I went with this cool palette. This is really, really beautiful, and actually, it's actually a warm palette, but it's cool as in is awesome. And it is fall colors. And I just thought, oh my goodness, how beautiful would this be as an earring made in that exact same way? And it would be really light too. So here's the earring. And I had 4 colors. So that was one of the reasons I did 4. So you'll notice this has an additional cluster at the bottom. Instead of 2, it's got 3. The orange, the maroon, and the blue. And then the pink is my top one. And so I have this one almost ready to go, but I thought I would show you wrapping a SuperDuo in case that, I mean, it's really very similar to the Petal, I think. This is also how you would wrap a dagger if you wanted to do a dagger bead. So here's my clusters. I have them ready. There's 1, 2, and 3. I need to make the top one using my, this is a purple wine color. Pretty. So let's get that going. And so again, you're going to want to work with a 24 gauge. In this case, it's going to be easier with a SuperDuo. I mean, I think 22 would work, but I thought just with the lightness of it, 24 seemed like the right ratio. But our process here is going to be really, really, really similar. I brought through a little more than the same length we were doing before, like a little over ½ an inch here to give it some height and to make it just a little bit more easy to dangle. But I'm just eyeballing it, and they're not all the same either, guys. They're different. So like on my clusters over here, see, the lengths are kind of close, but they're not exact, and they don't need to be. Just get them kind of close. They look good anyway. Bring those pliers. Bend the long one. I'm going to trim that wire. Roll this forward. And again, this is my top one, so it is getting wrapped without attaching first. For this one, you can feel free to go around as many times as you like. I actually went 5 that time. That's pretty good. And now I need to trim that. Here's a quick tip for trimming your little wire pieces. Off camera here during the video, I've been collecting my scraps in a little container. It's just a little plastic container. I think I got it at Target or something. And I am just trimming my ends over it. Sometimes when I'm filming, I'll trim it like this, right? And I'll carry it over and dump it. You'll hear me doing that. That is, if you have pets, guys, it's a really handy tip just to kind of keep those little pieces off of your floor. And also handy for you not stepping on them later too. And yeah, so that's how I've been doing my trimming. And there we go. So here's the second SuperDuo. And again, you just want to link that to the top one And I'm going to want to get a jump ring on that top one here really quick so I know which one is which. It can really help you keep track of it. So let me get that going after I join this. And I do think that making them with the SuperDuos is a lot smaller, so definitely having those, you know, an extra cluster is super recommended. You know, just so you have the statement look and the link on it. The length on it, sorry. Okay. And let's trim and then straighten this out. So when I'm working with this tiny wire, it actually fits quite nicely in the pliers. There we go. All right. So that's linked. Let's get a jump ring on the top of that one. There we go. So just mark one of those as your top. I think it helps a lot just to kind of identify which is which, and as you get going, it's harder to see. So super helps. Let's make 2 more. There it is. All right, so the top one's done. You know, it just takes a minute. You put on some music and just relax and have a fun wrapping those wires, and it's done. It seems like it takes a while, but I think it goes pretty quick. So once you have all your clusters done, you need to do some assembly. So let me show you that really quick. I've got a link here, and I've got an ear wire floating around there. And that's all you're going to need to finish up the earring. And some pliers to open up the loops. So I'm going to open up actually, let's start with the bottom. So we know I want blue on the bottom. So let's find the jump ring on my blue one. And the next color up is going to be the wine, or this one is called, what is it called? Maroon. Found the jump ring on that, looking at it, identifying the very bottom one, which is this one right here. And you'll be able to see it a couple of ways. You'll be able to tell because it will be the very, very bottom after all those other 3, see? Top, 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 and then this one. But go ahead and go slow with it because I have actually had a little hard time identifying it sometimes, so just take a look at it. All right, okay, so now we need to find the jump ring on the top of the maroon one. Here it is. See, this one has just an extra cluster, so we're going to do the same thing again. I'm going to open the maroon jump ring, and we're going to look at this one now, the orange, which is a, what is it, pumpkin. Oh, it's cute. Okay, so there's the jump ring. And there we go. There's the bottom one. You'll spot it. And then I just got to get my jump ring through it. There we go. I want to find the top jump ring here on this one. And this one goes on the ring. Okay. Look how cool that looks. Doesn't it look cool? It's the neatest thing ever. I'm going to put that on this ring here and then close that. I start getting excited when I complete things. All right, so there's this one. Gosh, that's gorgeous. Oh my goodness. This by itself looks cool, but I leveled it up by putting one more on there. So let's open up this ear wire. And I'm going to, facing front, put this loop on here. So just like that. Oh, and actually this ear wire opens a little differently than the ones that I made. See how mine, the loop's on the front? This one's opening to the back. So I actually want the ring to be behind the cluster. And that is just a design choice. It's not required, but it's something I'm going for here. So let's go ahead and put this one on the ear wire first. So in this case, it really matters which way your loop opens. You just want to make sure that the ring gets put on behind it. Sometimes it, moves around anyway, so it doesn't matter that much. I'm going to close this up. All right, look at that. Look how pretty this is. It's stunning. It is so pretty. And I already tried this one on earlier, and I was walking around this like wishing I had the second one because it's so cool. This looks amazing when you're wearing it. It looks really, really cool on. So there is the SuperDuo cluster of falling leaves. The little moon behind it. Oh my goodness, it's so cute. Yeah, so that's how you do it. That's how you make these beautiful things. And I hope you enjoyed it. Let's try them on. Let's try on the earrings. So I tried on the SuperDuo ones first. These are, again, they have an extra cluster to give them about the same length as the others. I had to add one extra cluster of 4. And also that was just so I could use the whole palette because I just love that palette. So they have so much swing and sway to them. I think I'm going to just wear these all day today. They match my vibe. It's fall, it's rainy, and they just feel like falling leaves out there coming down from the sky, walking around out on a trail. I love these. They're so cute. Okay, but the others are awesome. These ones are made with petals that I got from the live sale actually, and I think that they came out so nice. They're just really pretty, and they're going to be quite bold, and they could work for spring. They have a vacay vibe. I feel like they definitely feel like vacation to me. So here's those on. Oh yeah, those have like almost a bouquet look. How cool is that? I'm not very good at putting earrings on myself. There we go. Oh my goodness. Like guys, I love these ones. These are so pretty. Okay, so new favorite pair of earrings forever. Again, these are made with those petals. And I finished the other set of them. So I popped the camera on just to show both of the leaves done. They're so pretty. They came out so cool. So those are all finished. Let me hold them up. Super, super gorgeous ones. And I also finished the champagne clusters. So there's the first one we had originally. And then here's the one I made where the colors go the opposite direction. So look at that. Super pretty. They came out really nice. I hope you love this tutorial, and we'll catch you for the next one.